Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's BooksWithBethx here and welcome to my September reading wrap up. How are we in October already? It's spooky season and actually, usually I say I'm a summer girly, but this year I'm really feeling the autumny vibes. Maybe it's because if you're in the UK you'll know this as well. We didn't really have much of a summer, so it feels like it's quite nice to go from having an awful summer to actually going into an actual season. If that makes sense, although we are predicted quite warm weather for the next few days or even few weeks. And I want to get all my jumpers out and be wearing my jumpers and my boots and things like that, but we can't do that at the minute, it seems like. But yes, anyway, we are here for my September reading wrap up. I also have a Instagram competition giveaway running this week as well. So if you want to go follow my Bookstagram, I'll put my @ on the screen. It's pretty similar to my YouTube username. I'm giving you a chance to win a book off your Amazon wishlist. So if you want to go, give me a follow, go have a look, give that a like and comment. Do that because you might win a free book, and who doesn't like free books? Like always, I'll do this in the order that I read the books in. I have sort of cheated a little bit with this one. So technically I did only finish 4 books this month, but the last book I read I pretty much had finished in the month of September, so I've added that on here. So let's claim I've read 5. Who cares? One day wrong. Who cares? And again, at the end of this video, I will be doing a deeper dive into my stats because I'm a stats girly. If you like stats, stick around for that. If you don't like stats, I don't mind if you click off. I'm not blaming you, not everyone's a stats person. But I will say that my average rating for these 5 books was 3.7, which actually, shall I have a look at what I did? Let's see what I did last month, because I feel like that's worse again. I feel like everything's just been going downhill. Oh no, it's slightly better. Last month my average rate, well in August my average rating was 3.6, so 3.7 is a slight improvement, but I haven't been having good months, have I? I haven't really found any new favourites or anything like that recently, which isn't great. And also, as always, all of these books I have a full review up on Goodreads, apart from the last one, but I'll have one up in the next couple of days. And I've also got full 3-minute-ish, maybe a bit longer, reviews on my TikTok as well for all of these, where I go really in depth, so definitely give them a watch as well if you want to know. But anyway, the first book I finished was The Jasad Heir by Sarah Hashim, which I did actually start in August, and yeah, I finished it in September. I gave this 4 stars in the end. I did tab it, annotate, but I don't write in it, but I tabbed it. Enjoyed this. I enjoyed this. It's a new fantasy debut for this author. If you can't tell, it's sort of Egyptian mythology based. It's very similar. I say very similar. People are saying that this is helping people get out of the reading slump from Fourth Wings. It's relatively similar-ish to that-ish. There's quite a good enemies to lovers relationship in this, like true enemies to lovers. So in this you follow our main character Sylvia. Her whole family have been killed by a different group. There's like these 5, well there was these 5 different areas in the region, and one of them went in and killed her family / country. They could all do magic, and yeah, everyone else was not happy that they could do magic because they couldn't, and it sort of all triggered from that. And we're now, I think, 15 years in the future. She has been kidnapped by someone else for a while. She escaped them, but all her people are being persecuted. If they're found, and usually they're found by accidentally doing magic, they tend to be off. So yeah, quite a dark book. And in this you follow our main character Sylvia, who is the heir of Jasad's area. Every year there's this sort of challenger games, like almost Hunger Games style thing happening. And each of the other heirs pick a tribute for their own country, and the country that killed her country picks her. So there is that games element to the story, which was quite interesting. However, I will say the start and the middle of the book were really slow, and then the end was really rushed. So all the games happened pretty much in the last 70-ish%. The first 30 was her living in this area and then getting picked. The middle was like sort of the training and the relationship building side of it, and then yeah, the last 40% was the games and then the consequences at the end of that. It does end on a cliffhanger as well, so I'm very much looking forward to reading the next one and when it comes out, which hopefully won't be too far away. Come on, Sarah Hashim, you've got to release the next one soon. But yeah, It solved a lot of the problems I had with Fourth Wing. So I had problems around like really flat characters. All the characters felt really well developed in this. There was no world building, or hardly any world building in Fourth Wing. This is full of world building. Honestly, it's so complex, and that's probably why it's quite slow, because it is building up the world, and I feel like the next book / books, if it's a trilogy, will be a lot better because the world has already been established, I'm hoping. The only issue is that my copy didn't have a map, and there's a lot of travelling around in this. And so basically I started this at home, and then I went on holiday, and I was like, I don't want to damage my Illumicrate version, so I bought it on Kindle. It wasn't too expensive, and that version had a map, but the Illumicrate one doesn't, which really annoyed me. So yeah, overall I feel like the world was really planned out. The relationship worked really well for me as well. The enemies to lovers, where they actually are trying to kill each other. Perfect enemies to lovers. Fourth Wing is not enemies to lovers. If you read it, you'll know what I mean. It's more fake enemies to lovers, I suppose. This is true enemies to lovers. That worked really well for me. The characters all felt fleshed out. I loved her character growth as well throughout this, even though it's a start of a series, so there isn't too much, but I think the author did quite well. So yeah, looking forward to reading the next one in the series. I gave this 4 stars. And the next book I read, which I also gave 4 stars, was Say You Swear by Megan Brandy, which I read on Kindle Unlimited, so I'll put it here. I read this for one of my book clubs that I'm in. It was Book Lovers Spill the Tea, which is run by my friend Mariam over on Book Talk. I enjoyed this. It's a romance. I don't typically read romance, but I quite enjoyed this, and the love interest, Noah, can't think of his surname, Noah, I want to say James, but I don't think it's that. Noah is my new book boyfriend. I'm sorry, Charlie Lastra. I mean, Noah's probably too young for me, but it's fine. He is such an incredible guy, honestly. But yeah, I don't normally read romance. This is quite a switch up for me, and this is also quite a long romance. It was 500 pages, and it was going, and I was like, what's happening? Why is it so long? And then there's a massive twist right at the end. And then that's where it goes. So what is this about? So in this, we follow our main character, Ariana, and for all her life, she's been in love with a guy called Chase, who is also her twin brother's best friend. They're sort of quite a close-knit group. Her and her best friend, and then her twin brother and his 2 friends always go around together. They have like this beach house, which gave me very much Summer Return Pretty vibes if you watched the TV show / read the book. I've not read the book, but I've watched the TV show. And she's in love with him, and as she's now coming of age, they're all going off to college, she's definitely trying to like get him to like her back, and he does like her back, but he's so scared of her brother and his reaction that he's just refusing to get with her, until one night he drunkenly does, and they do stuff. And then the next day he says he regrets it all and closes off the whole relationship, breaking her heart. But while they're there at that beach house, they meet a man called Noah Riley, who I may have already alluded to a little bit in this. And it turns out he's the captain of the American football team that all the boys play for. So they're a very big American football team family. And they all end up going to the same college, and obviously her and Noah get closer and closer. It takes a little while for her heart to break down around after what happened with Chase, but then Chase starts getting jealous and starts getting involved. So there's like sort of love triangle-esque elements, although she's not really interested. And then, as I say, there's a huge twist at the end. It just throws the whole story out of proportion. It's good. It has quite a lot of plot, to be fair, for a romance. I will say that. And I feel like the relationships were very well developed. They did work quite well. I really liked her best friend as well. She was a really good friend to the main character. Although there were bits where I was like, they're not being very good friends to her, especially with the stuff that happens at the end, which I'm not going to go into because that's a massive spoiler. But yeah, it was... Some parts I thought were good, but I did feel like the main part of the story was too long. I don't feel like romances should be any longer than 350-ish pages. If they're any longer than that, like, what's happening in this to make it any longer? I can understand a fantasy romance being that long, not that I read too many of them. But like Fourth Wing, I think was probably the appropriate length, and that's obviously quite a romancy fantasy. This, I feel like a lot of it was dragged out, and a few people on the book club also agreed that little bits were dragged out, but I feel like it was quite nice, like watching their relationship grow, so maybe she didn't want to cut everything out there. But yeah, overall, I say I did enjoy it. I did give it 4 stars. Still not my favourite romance. Book Lovers is still my favourite, but Noah Riley is my new book husband, as the author writes at the end of the book. She says, sorry for giving you a new book husband, and she did. I'm sorry she did. I think everyone needs a guy like Noah in their lives, even if they're not boyfriends. So yeah, loved that. Well, I loved it. Gave it 4 stars. So yeah, romance for me. And then the next book I read, also on Kindle Unlimited, was Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney, which is my first Alice Feeney book, and I think actually one of my first thrillers I've ever read. I need to read more of them. I gave this 3.5 stars, which isn't the best. I had quite high expectations of this book. It was advertised as being a retelling of Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. I mean, it was almost a retelling, but it's not as good. If I had to choose between rereading And Then There Was None and this, it would be And Then There Was None. Even though that is quite a problematic book nowadays, some of the elements in there, but this was not as good. So I will say this. So in this, you follow our main character Daisy Darker. She is estranged from her family, but she's very, very close to her author, illustrator, grandmother, who lives on this sort of remote island off of the coast of Cornwall. You can only get there when the coast is out, because it's one of those where you can only drive or walk across it when there's no water there, basically. Her grandmother had previously been told that she was going to die on her 80th birthday, which consequently is also Halloween. She did a good choice there. So on the eve of her birthday, the whole family gathers together to listen to the will of their grandmother / mother / mother-in-law. Yeah, none of them really get anything good out of it. So family members that come together is obviously the grandmother, her mother, her father, her 2 sisters, and one of her sister's daughters, so her niece, and then a family friend who is quite close to the grandmother especially. And then if you know anything about And Then There Was None, the coast goes out and the killing starts. So obviously, I love this sort of concept of like the killer must be someone there, but you don't know who. And like And Then There Was None, you're like, oh, it must be that person, and then they die. You're like, it's not that person, maybe it's this one then, and then they die, and it's that sort of element. Whereas in this, I don't think they used that very well. I mean, it was the case that one of the people in the house was killing people, but I don't think you were really questioning who it was because everyone stayed in the same room pretty much the whole time. And occasionally someone would walk out and you're like, oh, it must be them then. And then, yeah, I don't know. I had higher hopes for this. I saw it was quite highly reviewed as well. So I was like, oh yeah, this will be good to read. I needed like a nice little thriller to read at the end of the holiday. It only took me 2 days to read it, to be fair. So it was quite a quick read. But yeah, I found that a lot of the story was quite predictable. A lot of the twists were predictable. I was expecting quite a few of them. Although I didn't guess the main twist at the end. And I feel like if I was slightly more intelligent, I would have spotted it, because there was elements where it was kind of obvious. And I did kind of consider rereading it just to spot those, but I just couldn't be bothered in the end. But that's the only reason that it bumped up from a 3-star to a 3.5 star. Most of the book was a 3-star. I will say it's a good plane ride read because you can just flow through it. I'll give it that. That's a plus to it. It isn't too long. That's one plus. One thing I did like was the jumping back and forward in time using videotapes. So throughout the story, there's these tapes that drop off that say like, watch me or read me or something like that. And they'll then play the tape, and it was the 3 girls as they were growing up. And then it was showing different parts of their lives. And I thought that was quite good. I quite like being able to see that and how it slowly pulled out the secrets out the characters. I think that was done quite well. But other than that, the rest of the story isn't really worth reading, I don't think. And I don't know, let me know in the comments if you've read any of Alice Feeney's other books and whether they are worth picking up, because I'm not sure. I think, hasn't she written Rock, Paper, Scissors or something like that? Yeah, Rock, Paper, Scissors, Sometimes I Lie. His and Hers is the only one I can see that's above a 4-star average rating. So maybe I'll read that one. I don't know. Let me know in the comments, because maybe I'll pick them up, maybe I won't. I want to try and get into thriller a little bit more, because I know there are some incredible ones out there. The main ones I read are like the Thursday Murder Club's like cozier ones. So maybe I'll try and read some of the others, but let me know in the comments what I should read. If I should read any of these, or if I shouldn't read any, let me know. And then the next book I read, and I feel like this should be a running joke. Maybe I should have vlogged reading. No, I should not have vlogged reading this. It was Faking with Benefits by Lily Gold, which I gave 3 stars to. Again, I read this for a book club. This was for Brooks Book Club on Fable called The Muses, so you should definitely join us there. We're doing Hooked next month, or this month, I suppose. So I'm looking forward to that. This, when she picked it, I was a bit like, okay, I'll read it. I'll open my mind to it, but I don't know what I'll think of it. So this is a reverse harem, friends to lovers romance. Now, if you don't know what reverse harem is, look it up. I'm not going to explain it here, but I will say that this book is almost 40 to 50% pure spice. and hardly any plot. So yeah, it's quite interesting reading it before you're trying to go to sleep because it doesn't work very well. But I will try to explain the plot in short. So in this, we've got our main character, Layla, who is a lingerie entrepreneur, like a small business owner. She works on her own. She's doing quite well for herself. And because of that, she hasn't really focused on dating or anything like that. She occasionally has like a one-night stand and things like that, but she's not ever had a proper relationship. And she's been on 200 first dates, have never gone anywhere, and she doesn't know how to fix this. So she turns to her neighbours who are in the same block of flats as her. They are 3 guys who run a sex and relationships podcast, and they offer to all fake date her. So you've got the rugby guy, which obviously, he's called Zach. He's obviously my favourite. I'm a rugby girl. He was my favourite. I've never read a book actually with a rugby player in before, so I think Binding 13's another one. I need to read them. You've got Josh, who is sort of like the guy in charge of the podcast. I don't really know what his career was before. And you've got another guy whose name I can't think of right now, who used to be Layla's school teacher at school, and he's divorced from his wife, who was her headmaster. And yeah, so she fake dates all of these guys, and it soon gets, like literally on the 2nd or 3rd day, it gets spicy immediately, with all 4 of them involved. It wasn't very heavy on the plot. You do go back into their backstories a little bit, and you understand why the characters act the way they do, especially like in and outside of the bedroom. One of my favourite parts of the book is the more business side of it, which I know is not the point. It's not the thing you should take away from reading this book, but I really enjoyed looking into like Layla's business, how she runs it, the marketing behind it, the website stuff behind it, how she's promoting it through the podcast. I really liked that, which that just shows like the marketing businessy brain in me, I suppose. I really liked that part of it. I also quite liked how there was like multi-formats as well. So throughout it, you'll get like a list of tweets about the recent episode, or you'll get them actually like a transcript of the episode that they're recording. I quite like that element. It was also multi-POV as well, which as I say is quite useful for helping build up the characters' backgrounds and their personalities. So there is some good elements to it. And I will say the spice didn't really cringe me out too much. There was some things that she did, or they all did, that it was just a bit like, okay. And then like things they were saying and some of the descriptions were a bit iffy. But it wasn't too bad. I've definitely read worse, cringier spice scenes, so it wasn't that bad in that instance. I will say You Swear's got better spice scenes, better written, less cringy, I will say that. But overall, it was a fun little time. It won't win the book of the year, but I gave it 3 stars. I don't think I'll pick up any of Lily Gold's other books, not unless I get picked for another book club maybe, because I had to scroll through and all of her books are like reverse harem love stories. So yeah, it's not really my jam, but I read it. Again, it was probably too long. It was another like 500-page book, I think. Yeah, 550 pages. And imagine half of that is spice, like 225 pages or whatever it would be. You can do the maths. 275 pages of spice. Yeah, that's a lot of spice. It went on for chapters as well. But if you want to read spice and you don't really want to care that much about plot, give this a read. You might enjoy it. And then the final book I read mostly in the month of September and finished on the 1st of October was Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno-Garcia, which someone in my comments said to read it this month, well, in September, because it was Latino Heritage Month, and I didn't even realise I hadn't seen it anywhere, which was really awful of me. I need to keep an eye on these things. So yeah, I managed to squeeze this in right at the end, and overall I really enjoyed it. I thought it started quite slowly. I felt a bit, what's the word? Disgruntled? Is that the right word? Throughout most of it. And then hitting the last, I think it was 70%, it was just like, It was quite a grim story towards the end. I wouldn't say I was super scared probably up until the end part anyway. You're just a bit on edge throughout a lot of the story. But it also took quite a while to get going, in my opinion. So yeah, I gave this 4 stars. This is my first Sylvia Moreno-Garcia. I don't currently have a review up for this. I will have one up during this week, so you can keep an eye out on that if you follow me on Goodreads. Yeah. what can I say? So in this, you follow our main character, Naomi. She's quite close with her cousin who has been recently married off to this white man. There's quite a lot of colonialism aspects to the story and a lot of like eugenics and that sort of thing to it. So her cousin's married to this man, and then all of a sudden they start getting these really weird letters from her cousin where none of it's really legible. It sounds like her husband is drugging her. It's very strange. So Naomi goes to go see her cousin, see what's happening, take her to a doctor if she needs to, or bring her home if necessary, just to find out what's happening. And when she gets there, she meets and gets to know her cousin's husband, her cousin's father-in-law, who's quite an elderly man at this point, and her cousin's auntie and cousin-in-law, I suppose you call them, maybe. And yeah, it's quite strange. They all live in this house and they're not really allowed to leave at any point. The house is crumbling. It's like a white colonialist type house, so it's probably like in a Victorian style. It's set in 1950s Mexico, so you can kind of imagine what the house is like. It's on this like mountaintop where there's always rain and mist, and it's not a very nice part of Mexico from the sounds of things. And there's weird like pandemic elements to it, like they used to run a silver mine there, and a lot of the people that worked in that mine had died. There's a lot of rumours, and then the sort of horror-esque parts start where you're not really sure what's happening. The main character walks a lot, but you don't know what's reality and what isn't. And yeah, it's just very, what's the word? Like unsettling is probably the word for a lot of the story until it all starts kicking off towards the end. Naomi is such a cool character. I really loved her. She was very headstrong. She wouldn't ever take any ish from her cousin's husband or the father-in-law or even the auntie that lives there. She was always up for doing what she wanted to, even if it sort of disadvantaged her quite a lot of time and left her not in a very safe situation. I will say check your triggers for this because there are quite a few, especially some quite serious ones if you're impacted by those. But yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I overall did enjoy it. I had higher expectations though, I'll be honest. I was expecting this to be at least a 4.5 if not a 5-star read. Sadly it wasn't, but I think I will still pick up her other books. I think I mentioned in the video, but this is her first, like her debut release. It's not. She actually had, is it like Gods of Jade and Shadow or something like that? I think that was her first one. Yeah, Gods of Jade and Shadow. Got that perfect. Which is a fantasy. So I need to pick that one up. And she's actually just released a new one, Silver Nitrate, which is like a cult movie horror related story. So need to read that. That sounds really good. I gave this 4 stars, so... and I will pick up her other work. So maybe she is now an auto-buy author. Maybe she is. Okay, so let's do some reading stats. My favourite-ish part of the video. So obviously I read 5 books in the month of September. Well, technically 4, but pretty much 5. And I actually read 500 more pages than I did last month, which pretty good. I read more, so that's the main thing. And I also listened to 8.22 hours of audiobook, which I feel like should be higher than that. I need to work on listening to more audiobooks. I'm going to start working out again this month, so I will be listening to more, hopefully. Moods-wise, 3 of the books were marked as emotional, and then 1 tense, 1 sad, 1 mysterious, 1 lighthearted, 1 funny, 1 dark, and 1 adventurous. So clearly I was in an emotional mood, even though I tried to read more summary-ish books. I don't know if you can tell, I was kind of in a fantasy slump last month, so hence why I was picking up more romance, although I had quite a lot of book club books to read. And I was on holiday for a week as well, so I was trying to read the romance during that time. It didn't really work out that well. But, I mean, yeah, I don't know what else I can say to that. Pace-wise, 50% were fast and 50% medium. But I read 5 books. So 2.5 of them were fast and 2.5... What? Okay. We'll run with that. 2.5 of the books were fast and 2.5 of the books were medium pace. I don't know what's wrong with this data. Yeah, it's not updating. Okay, for some reason the data says that I've read 2 fast books, 2 medium books, but it shows 3 on the medium, so whatever. And then 75% of the books were 300 to 499 pages and 25% were 500 plus pages, which again isn't true. Or maybe it is. Whatever, we'll go with that. It was all 100% fiction, although I did read most of the non-fiction this month. if you've seen my TBR, you'll know what book that was. Genres. So this is where it gets interesting. So I don't usually read any of these genres. 2 romance, 2 contemporary, 1 erotica, 1 thriller, 1 sports, 1 fantasy, and 1 crime. The only one I usually read is fantasy and maybe contemporary. So that shows how this month was completely mixed up for me. Read 1 in print and the rest were digital, if you didn't guess, with the 1 print behind me. Star rating. So I gave 1 book 3 stars, 1 book 3.5, and then 3 books 4 stars. So my average rating isn't 3.7 because again, this is wrong. I don't know what's wrong with the data. And then, yeah, I'll just throw when I read on here. I read quite a lot actually on a few weekends. So yeah, there's like 1 there. What's that one? Yeah, there was 1 day that I read 212 pages, which is like pretty much a record for me, I reckon. And I did try and start getting more into my audiobook as well, if you can see at the bottom there. But yeah, those are my stats. Not sure what else I can say really, because they are broken, but it is what it is. Overall, had a meh month, slightly better than last month. Hopefully this month will be better. I'm hoping it will be, because I do tend to read darker books anyway, and I feel like I saved up all my darker books for October and November. Hence reading Mexican Gothic, which I really wanted to read for quite a while. So yeah, I'm hoping, I recommend watching my TBR. You can let me know if you think I'll enjoy most of these. I haven't heard great things about a couple of them, but I've got Dracula to read on there, so I'm looking forward to that, and Beloved. So yeah, it should be a better month. But yes, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these and what you thought of them, and also let me know what was your favourite read of last month, because I don't need to grow my TBR, but I want to grow my TBR, so let me know in the comments. But yeah, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video, which will be next weekend. Sorry about this one coming out late, but the next one will be next weekend, so yeah. I'll see you then. Goodbye.